And today we will be discussing Care4Cargivers and how to ensure staff well-being in the work you all do, providing rehabilitation services and accompanying torture survivors in their path towards justice. And actually today we have a good crowd of panelists who I will be introducing later. But yeah, it looks like we will have an insightful session with many perspectives from different parts of the world on how to ensure well-being of staff. As always, remember that we have simultaneous interpretation available from English to French and Spanish. So make sure you're on the right channel. And yeah, without any further ado, I'd like to start by giving the floor to Lisa Henry, IRCT's Secretary General, who will be setting the stage with some opening remarks.
Thank you, Berta. Excellent, and really nice to see so many of you online today. As always, it's a trip across the globe as you see the different faces from all around the world who obviously find this topic incredibly important. So Care4Cargivers Plus, as we call it in IRCT, we're incredibly concerned about, and these are the 4,000 strong members who work in the front lines in the torture rehabilitation world in one of the most professionally challenging realms of work, to be mental health experts working with torture victims 24/7, as we say, is one thing. And that's, of course, what we'll be talking about today. But given the context of war, and given the context of our geopolitical situation these days, where many people are practicing, among others, major media avoidance, I think it really hones in on the topic of what can we do in this group of solidarity that we have on the screen here today, but also the broader network of mental health care professionals, to make sure that we as organizations are taking care of our staff and as we as individuals are taking care of ourselves. So today you're going to have quite a large panel of experts from the Health Advisory Board of IRCT. You'll have some external experts, and you'll have the program manager here, Lindiwe Daklama, who will be describing what have we been doing since we put our spotlight on this topic. We've put our spotlight on this topic because you as members have brought it to our attention. And we've had a couple of other webinars on this theme. So we're continuing to build on the great work that's been done and the best practice of many of the members out there. So with these words of introduction, I'll hand it back to Berta, and then we will have a string of presentations, short ones, and some sharp questions that are asked. And it's your opportunity to ask questions, to ask for best practice, and to ask for guidance and to contribute your own best knowledge on this topic. We hope to protect our staff and to be part of having a much more robust, continuous care for torture survivors. So thanks very much for being here today, and back to you, Berta.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. And as Lisa was saying, in today's session, we will be starting with the panel discussion, where the 6 panelists will be asked questions, and this will hopefully boost a conversation around the topic. And we will take the questions and open to the audience, open the floor to a conversation with all of you at the end. So yeah, this is the format of today. And I will now present the 6 panelists of today, who are all part of the Health Advisory Board, IRCT's Health Advisory Board. And I would also like to thank them in advance for their time today and their willingness to participate in this panel. So we have Dr. Kamal Gautam. He's a senior psychiatrist and executive director at TPO Nepal. We have Dr. Khader Rasras. He's the general director and senior clinical psychologist at TRC in Palestine. Then we have Jose Luis Tejada. He's a Chilean psychiatrist with 20 years of experience supporting survivors of torture, other human rights violations, and their families. He's also the clinical coordinator at the IRCT Member Center for Mental Health and Human Rights called CINTRAS, so that's the acronym. Then we also have Danielle Bernas. She's a licensed master social worker And she works her role as a director of Refugee and Immigrant Center for Healing at the Jewish Family Services of Western New York. I'm sorry if the interpreters, if I'm speaking too fast. Then we have Clarisa, Rocío, Rocío Clarisa Lemus, but she wants to be addressed as Clarisa. She's a psychologist at CAPS, Colombia. And then last but not least, Dr. Michael Brune, and he's an independent psychiatrist based in Hamburg, in Germany. So yeah, I think now we have the setting. And so I will start with the first question. And the question goes to you, Lindiwi. Lindiwi is the IRCT project associate of this project Care4Cargivers. So Lindiwi, as project associate, what do we know about Care4Cargivers? What can you tell us about the project so far?
Thank you, Berta. So at the end of last year, we got the opportunity to carry out a baseline survey of our member centers. So we have gathered some information about how our different centers in different regions are carrying out care for caregivers, and I will share a brief summary of the data that we gathered in the PowerPoint. Let me know if you can see my screen.
It was visible before.
Okay. Here we go. Okay. So we carried out a survey and we got 96 responses, which is pretty good considering we have 171 centers. We also carried out regional virtual meetings to discuss the findings of our baseline survey a little bit more and got more insights. We found that 67 of the respondents said that they did have a staff well-being policy. And Latin America, North America, most respondents from this region said that they didn't have a staff well-being policy. However, it's important to note that sometimes, in a lot of cases, centers do have staff well-being practices and they might not have the policy. However, policies are important when it comes to trying to advocate for yourself when it comes to proposals, because donors often like to see that you have something documented of the practice that you're doing in your centers. The main challenges among staff. So we took the main conditions that staff often suffer from, such as vicarious trauma, PTSD, burnout, and we broke it down into the symptoms. And we said, what are the main symptoms in your region? And as you can see, for most of the regions, the main symptoms were fatigue and anxiety. For example, North America's main symptom was challenges maintaining healthy boundaries. Now, during our virtual meetings, I was able to understand that this meant that the client or the victim often required further assistance outside of the, for example, counseling session. So it was hard for the counselor, psychologist, or psychiatrist to keep the treatment to just mental health because they might need other help, such as transport, accommodation, and other things. If you look at regions such as the Pacific, there's high turnover. I was able to understand that high turnover is not necessarily a bad thing, especially in organizations where there are good handover processes. And in the Pacific region specifically, this high turnover was more organic, whereas comparatively in other regions, it might be high turnover due to stressful environments where handover processes may not be that great. Barriers to challenges being addressed. The good thing is that most respondents said that the challenges that we saw previously were being addressed in their organizations completely or at least partially. So we know that member centers are at least trying to take care of their staff. Only 6% said that they weren't being addressed at all. The main barriers to addressing these challenges for organizations that were only partially or not addressing the challenges, unsurprisingly, was the lack of financial resources. And as you can see, most regions did cite lack of financial resources as the main barrier. There was also time, workload, and a lack of human resources. These are all interlinked, right? So for there to be an increase in human resources, you need more finances to be able to pay this person's salaries. Now, we looked also at how centers are addressing these challenges, and you'll see a lot of similarities amongst all 7 regions. For example, internal supervision, external supervision seems common amongst all 7 regions, right? You'll also see things like staff well-being days, staff retreats, yes, and just the opportunity to get out of the high pressure office work environment into a low pressure environment together with your team. A lot of people might think that these things are frivolous. Oh, the staff just want to go out and have a good time for a day. How is that sustainable? How is that helpful? But what we found is that this is actually helpful in team bonding. You learn to trust each other. You learn each other's backstories. There's interdepartmental bonds that are formed. And when you go back to the office, that this actually helps in the flow, the workflow. And it helps you to become a more effective team where you can trust each other and then ultimately provides the best care for the victim. Then you'll see some differences as well. You'll see that in North America, they enjoy time off and flexible work schedules. And then you compare that to Sub-Sahara Africa and the MENA region, and you'll see that they enjoy team building exercises as something that helps with staff well-being and self and their internal mental health. So these are interesting differences to note. You'll also see in the Pacific, you'll see professional development training. And this has been written in academic writing to actually contribute to individuals and collective staff well-being. I think it was Christian Prose who wrote in a 2006 article in the Torture Journal that this was one of the big contributors to staff well-being in the workplace. Do the interventions apply to all staff? So you'll notice that it's Care4Cargivers plus. The general idea often is that caregivers are psychologists or psychiatrists, the ones who deal directly with clients, maybe some doctors sometimes, but not many people think about the staff who are first to meet the victim. It might be the guard at the gate. It might be the receptionist. It might be the cleaner who's mopping up the blood after the doctor has treated the victim. We've seen from research that all staff can suffer in varying degrees from vicarious trauma and burnout. So it's important to include all staff. 72% of respondents said that all staff were included in these interventions. However, I personally think that this figure is a little bit dubious. It looks a little bit too high. And from my discussions, maybe there is a little bit of lack of understanding of what all staff meant. How to address these challenges. So again, financial assistance is cited as the main way to address these challenges. And luckily, we have Dr. Kamal, who will talk to you about how TPO Nepal includes staff care in the narrative and financial proposals to donors. I also want to take the opportunity to point out here that the United Nations, UNVFVT, has United Nations Voluntary Fund for Victims of Torture, which a lot of centers are funded by. In 2004, August noted that care for care providers was a big issue that people were bringing up, and they have also highlighted that centers with direct assistance grants from the UNVFVT are able to apply for staff care measures and projects under the institutional development budget lines. However, you don't have to wait for a donor agency to announce this. You can go ahead and include in proposals, and we'll learn a little bit more about how to do so um, as the panelists continue. So thank you. I'll leave it there for now. Thank you, Berta.
Thank you so much. Am I unmuted? Thank you so much, Lindy. That was a very good way to start this session and to understand how this can look different, right, in different regions, and what well-being means actually in different regions. So thank you, Lindy. I will now move to Dr. Khader. As convener of the Health Advisory Board, can you tell us what has been done so far on that matter?
Thank you so much, Berta, and all the members in the Secretariat, and we acknowledge and appreciate the very hard work you do in order to maintain this umbrella for the different institutions. Well, at the beginning, I would like to say, in addition to the great people you can see their pictures on the screen, we also have another member of the Health Advisory Board. She's Sine O'Connor. She wanted to be with us, but she has a different, other commitments. So this board, when it was established, I was the only man standing in the department. And I was so lucky to be supported with all those people with their huge expertise in the field. In our first meeting, we were all committed to promote the professional standard of the different centers, members of the IRCT. And we decided that at the beginning, the most important issue that we should work at is Care4Cargivers. And we have developed a document to be communicated with the different centers under the umbrella of the IRCT, or even outsiders also. They can benefit from the understanding that we developed together. You know, the idea of Care4Cargivers is very important, and it's an essential thing that must be institutionalized in each center, and must be adopted also as a policy, not just an act that we do every now and then. And we were able also to explain to those who will benefit from this document that it's not always how much money we have. We can do it in different ways and in different angles, and even with the minimal financial resources, because it is based on acknowledgement and also maintenance of the staff for their best interest, and also for the best interest of people who benefit from that. And I am sure during this time allocated to us, we will come across different issues related to Care4Cargivers. At the same time, also, we decided to move toward another essential idea and topic. It is the clinical supervision. Tackling the different sides of supervision, and also the different ideas about how to do it and how it must be done. And I think very soon we will be able also to submit that to the Secretariat and to the Council also, so that they can see how to make use of it. In the end, I would like again to thank those very important members who gave life to this document, and we are all here in order to entertain your inquiries about the idea related to care for caregivers. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you, Dr. Khader. I think I will move on now to Jose Luis with a bit more specific, or like, let's say, deeper look into the symptoms of that staff can suffer from. So if you can tell us about the specific conditions such as compassion fatigue, vicarious trauma, burnout, and any other conditions that professional caregivers can suffer from.
Gracias, Berta. Voy a hablar en español.
Muy bien.
Bien. Nosotros como trabajadores, es muy común en gente altamente comprometida que veamos y sintamos el impacto de nuestro trabajo cotidiano. Entonces es importante entender cuáles son las fuentes, por qué, para poder identificar e intervenir, ¿sí? En nuestro trabajo nosotros vemos que el ambiente es particular. Muchas veces nuestro trabajo está dado en ambientes inciertos, con violencia que está ocurriendo, ¿no? Zonas de conflicto, y podemos ser nosotros mismos, estar expuestos a situaciones traumáticas. Pero además, la incertidumbre y las situaciones ambientales del trabajo impactan a nuestro bienestar. Además de los ambientes laborales, tiene que ver con las personas con las que trabajamos, ¿no? Los sobrevivientes habitualmente están en altos niveles de sufrimiento, tienen muchas condiciones y situaciones del día a día que los impactan, muchas veces altos niveles de sufrimiento, altas necesidades, como hablaba, no solamente de salud, ¿no? Y muchas veces tienen consecuencias a la salud psicológicas y sociales de la traumatización extrema, ¿no? Como sobrevivientes de tortura. Todas estas situaciones impactan de una manera diversa al bienestar de las personas que acompañan a los sobrevivientes. Entonces, se han conceptualizado formas para comprender cómo es que nos afectamos emocionalmente e incluso físicamente, ¿no? Entonces hay tres grandes conceptos que se han desarrollado en este tema. Uno es el síndrome de burnout, o de agotamiento profesional, cansancio emocional. Em, Otro es la fatiga por compasión, y otro es el trauma vicario. Si bien son conceptos distintos, nosotros podemos ver que sus síntomas son comunes, que se, em, que están, que ocurren al mismo tiempo, ¿no? Y a veces son difíciles de distinguir, pero es importante hacer distinciones para poder entender qué es lo que nos afecta y cómo intervenir nuestro bienestar. Si entendemos el síndrome de burnout o el agotamiento profesional, es una respuesta al estrés crónico laboral, ¿no? Es una respuesta más bien general al trabajo, es algo que se conoce desde la década de los 60 del siglo pasado, y son respuestas emocionales a la sobrecarga laboral y a condiciones generales del trabajo, ¿no? No específicamente el trabajo humanitario o el trabajo en salud, ¿sí? Y lo podemos ver como respuestas y sentimientos negativos hacia el trabajo, hacia nosotros mismos, como un agotamiento emocional, y también como una baja de la eficacia de nuestro trabajo. Comúnmente presenta síntomas de la esfera ansiosa o depresiva, problemas de sueño, problemas fisiológicos. Entonces se puede confundir con depresiones o trastornos ansiosos comúnmente, ¿no? Pero entendemos que eso es algo que ocurre a todos los trabajadores, ¿sí? Pero también es una fuente común de impacto en el bienestar de los trabajadores. Si nosotros vamos a aspectos más específicos del impacto, tenemos el concepto de la fatiga por compasión. La fatiga por compasión es algo que se estudia desde la década de los 90, y inicialmente trabajadores de salud que acompañan a personas que sufren, ¿no? Estar y acompañar a personas que están sufriendo causa un impacto por empatía, ¿sí? Por contacto empático con el sufrimiento y por el deseo de mejorar, de ayudar a las personas que sufren. Entonces, el hecho de estar trabajando con personas que tienen altas necesidades y que sufren, y estar en contacto cotidiano, cara a cara con ellos, em, también tiene un impacto relevante en nuestra salud emocional, ¿no? Entonces, es común ver respuestas fisiológicas como dolores, problemas de sueño, emocionales, ¿no? Como desesperanza, altos niveles de frustración, ¿sí? Em, y un desapego por el trabajo. Y es algo que se ve incluso en personas altamente comprometidas como somos los que trabajamos en esto, ¿no? Em, entonces está el concepto de burnout y el concepto de fatiga por compasión, ¿sí? Hay algo más específico que se ve en las personas que trabajan y acompañan a personas que han sufrido trauma psicológico, ¿no? Los sobrevivientes comúnmente que han sufrido trauma psicológico, diversas razones, pero sobre todo por la tortura, ¿no? El trauma de la tortura. Y en diversas investigaciones y estudios se ve que las personas que acompañan a las personas que viven trauma, también por el contacto empático con el contenido de los relatos y con las emociones, pueden sufrir como un contagio, ¿no? Como los autores hablan de una infección, pueden empezar a sentir síntomas del estrés traumático y empezar a tener pesadillas, empezar a tener pensamientos intrusivos, evitación del trabajo. eh, entonces, eso es lo que se llamó y se conceptualizó como el trauma vicario o trauma secundario, ¿no? Como hay otra persona que está traumatizada y el estar en contacto empático con esa persona nos genera también fenómenos distintos, ¿sí? En este contexto también es importante entender que muchas de las personas que trabajamos aquí, como de la población, también hemos vivido nuestros propios traumas. Y muchas veces en el trabajo empático eh, se mueven nuestros traumas, ¿no? Y eso es algo importante de identificar y abordar, que es como, ¿cómo estamos nosotros, ¿no? Para hacer un trabajo tan complejo como este, ¿sí? Em, Hay un concepto también relativamente común que se usa de los últimos años, que es la idea también de daño moral, ¿no? O herida moral, que ocurre en los trabajadores cuando están obligados o presionados a hacer cosas que van en contra de sus principios morales, ¿no? Y también ha estado identificado cuando uno trabaja en ambientes altamente desfinanciados o una ayuda a personas víctimas de la violencia y se da cuenta que la violencia sigue ocurriendo, ¿no? Que uno tiene muy pocas cosas que hacer. Y eso es una fuente también de estrés y de malestar común, que hace que, no sé, por los estudios, las personas que trabajan con trauma psíquico, por lo menos la mitad de las personas manifiestan tener algún grado de malestar o de estrés eh, producto de su trabajo, ¿no? Y hasta un tercio de los psicoterapeutas dicen que ese estrés es extremo, es tan importante como para causar síntomas, ¿no? Entonces, estas son algunas de las conceptualizaciones donde nosotros podemos entender cuáles son las fuentes del malestar que nos lleva a hacer este trabajo, ¿no? Este trabajo que para todos nosotros es tan relevante y que queremos tanto.
Muchas gracias, José Luis. Muy interesante, sobre todo este concepto de daño moral. Sorry, I'm going to switch to English. That I didn't know about. I'm just thanking José Luis for walking us through these different levels of impact in a psychological, emotional, and physical level that we can find. And I hope you've been taking notes of these three concepts he was introducing, I think, burnout, compassion fatigue, and vicarious trauma. I've been, at least. So yeah, thank you, José Luis. And I'm gonna move on to Danielle Bernas. Danielle, why do you think it is relevant to focus on Care4Cargivers as IRCT? And why do you think, why is it relevant that to integrate it as part of the organizational structure of centers that provide rehabilitation services to torture survivors?
Thank you, Berta. Yeah, so I'm really going to reiterate a lot of what has already been said by our panelists. So model and guidance of Care4Cargivers Plus is really critical to, as we know, ensuring the well-being of individuals in a professional or personal caring role, not only to sustain services, but to sustain a high quality of care. And if our caregivers are struggling with the secondary effects that Jose discussed of being in a caregiver role, most critically, compassion fatigue and burnout, we really can't adequately serve survivors of torture and trauma. And the secondary effects that create secondary or vicarious trauma just create more individuals struggling with trauma responses, and our work continues to be a hazardous occupation. And so caregivers have chosen to work with a highly traumatized yet resilient population. And just as we strive to improve the health and well-being of survivors, we must also strive to maintain the health and well-being of our caregivers. And integration of this model into the organizational structure of centers demonstrates a culture of caring and really strategic planning of things like clinical and non-clinical supervision for everybody involved in rehabilitation efforts, which we saw as a common theme across many different areas of the world. That was in Lindue's presentation. And as Dr. Khader mentioned, we are working on a document to clarify concepts of supervision for all staff and address gaps in training for clinical supervisors. And what was also mentioned already is it's important to note that as you consider your organizational structure, but it's not only frontline staff that are impacted by this work. It's really everybody that comes into contact with survivors of torture. And implementation efforts to address caregiver stress really should consider how each team member plays a role in the rehabilitation work. So training, supervision, and other means of support should be available to members throughout the process of work with survivors of torture, not just as needed. It really needs to be about consistency of support. So that consistency and support is a necessary component of this particular model. And we talked about well-being policies that address top reported concerns, including the fatigue, anxiety, maintaining healthy boundaries, low motivation, high staff turnover. These policies need to start with leadership buy-in and prioritization and acknowledgement by leadership of secondary effects of working with survivors of torture. And there are a lot of overlap of symptoms of various secondary effects, so vicarious trauma, compassion fatigue, burnout, and effective well-being programs help staff understand how to recognize effects, not only staff, but supervisors who are involved in clinical supervision or overseeing staff in some capacity. It's really important to recognize that somebody may be experiencing the beginning stages of one of these effects. And so, again, effective well-being programs help staff understand how to recognize effects before it gets to a point of complete burnout. And programs need to intervene to maintain staff well-being and the ability to continue the work. And then just one other note that I want to make is while caregiver syndrome is addressed in the ICD-11, it is a viable diagnosis that should be introduced into other literature like the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. And unless we continue to do the work to address caregiver syndrome, the literature and diagnostic tools used internationally will really fail to create a discourse about recognition and treatment of caregiver syndrome, and also encourage conversations about models like Care4Cargivers Plus.
Thank you, Danielle. Sorry, I was muted. Thank you so much. I think I will move to Clarisa to allow for some questions at the end. So please, I can see some of you have questions already, but if you can keep them at the end, and then we can open the floor. So Clarisa, now I will move to you. I'm gonna pose the question in English, but you can obviously present in Spanish. So Clarisa, the question to you is, what are the various ways or types of interventions that member centers can use to implement Care4Cargivers Plus in their organizations?
Bueno, muchas gracias, Berta y todo el equipo IRCT y los miembros del IRCT. Estamos muy felices de poder participar en esta conferencia. Hay varias medidas que pueden tomar los centros alrededor del mundo para poder incluir el cuidado para cuidadores en sus organizaciones. Ya los compañeros previamente han conversado cómo es muy importante tener una mirada en las respuestas individuales que van dando las personas cuando trabajamos en temas tan difíciles y complicados como el acompañamiento a víctimas de tortura. Entonces, un primer paso es fijarnos en los individuos, cómo están realmente sobrellevando las cargas que implica el trabajo con víctimas de tortura, y que también las personas se fijen en cómo pueden acudir o necesitar a prácticas personales de autocuidado. Entonces, ese sería un primer nivel bastante importante para considerar y para que los centros lo tengan entre sus trabajos. De otro lado, también los compañeros también han hablado de la importancia de la supervisión, ya sea clínica o no clínica, porque la supervisión nos permite también abordar los casos y las emociones y las expectativas que tenemos frente a estos casos, lo que nos ayuda a generar medidas de mitigación en caso de que notemos que se requiere algún tipo de apoyo extra. Entonces, la supervisión también es muy importante. Se ha probado que hacer estudios de caso puede favorecer también el poder ir más profundamente hacia los casos, entenderlos y generar medidas de equipo que puedan ayudar a que los casos tengan un buen desarrollo. También, aparte de la supervisión, ya mencionado, la formación en temas que sean importantes para los equipos pueden ser muy importantes. Aunque no percibamos que sea directamente relacionado, formarnos en temas que nos ayuden a manejar mejor los casos puede ser bastante favorable. Y de otro lado, pues pueden hacer actividades en donde se promueva el beneficio, el bienestar del equipo. Se pueden hacer actividades semanales, constantes, en las que se está sobrellevando la carga inherente al trabajo. Pueden ser actividades que sean culturalmente aceptadas y que los equipos sientan que realmente les sirven, para que puedan tener como una especie de semanalmente de descarga de sus cargas de trabajo, para que puedan irlas manejando poco a poco. También pueden ser actividades mucho más amplias en donde se trabaje la comunicación del equipo, cómo se está dando todo el trabajo, cómo se está llevando a cabo la carga, nivelar un poco también las cargas. Esto pueden ser retiros que se realicen o actividades en donde se pueda decir que se puede comunicar y se puede hablar lo que nos está ocurriendo y lo que está pasando. También se pueden hacer supervisiones en donde sean las personas de los equipos de trabajo que vayan a otros lugares para que puedan recibir el apoyo que necesitan. Esto especialmente en casos en donde ya los miembros están mencionando que la carga el trabajo está siendo demasiado fuerte para ellos. Entonces pueden asistir a consultas psicológicas o psiquiátricas, dependiendo lo que se requiera, para que puedan tener ese apoyo externo que seguramente pueden necesitar. Sobre todo pienso que lo importante es mantener un examen, un ojo vigilante sobre cómo nos estamos sintiendo, qué nos está pasando, tanto individuos como grupos, para poder generar también las medidas apropiadas que podamos desarrollar desde nuestras capacidades, desde nuestros recursos económicos también, para poder atender al cuidado para cuidadores. Gracias.
Gracias, Clary. Me preguntaba si puedes poner un ejemplo de esto, de actividades de descarga a que te referías. Creo que has dicho retiro, pero ¿hay otro tipo de actividades?
Sí, pueden ser actividades como más frecuentes. A veces los retiros requieren para los equipos que se destinen unos días, que en las agendas se destinen unos días específicos para eso, entonces pueden ser menos frecuentes. Sin embargo, hay unas actividades que se pueden hacer con mayor frecuencia, que pueden considerarse desde trabajar yoga, hacer pilates, sesiones de 1 hora en donde podamos encontrarnos con cómo nos estamos sintiendo. Pueden ser también no necesariamente realizar una actividad, sino sentarnos a conversar, a hablar sobre cómo nos estamos sintiendo, compartir espacios en los que podamos, no sé, escuchar música, ir a jugar bolos, tener espacios de esparcimiento también como equipo puede ser muy importante.
Muchas gracias, Clary.
Un
Thank you
gusto.
so much. Yes, Clarisa from CAPS Colombia. And I'm going to now go back to you, Dr. Khader. As director of DRC in Ramallah, how are you implementing staff well-being mechanisms at DRC, especially in this harsh period since October 7th? How have you been looking after your team's mental health over this extremely difficult period? I think you're muted, Khader. I can see your mouth is
Thank you
moving.
so much. I think one of the most important things we needed to do here is the finding a meaning for the kind of work we do for the victims and for people who are in need. And I believe that reauthoring the narrative related to the kind of work we do was very important to make people more committed to their work and also able to tolerate the high load and also the jeopardy they face every day when they go into the field in the mobile clinic. But I think finding a meaning of this very difficult experience was a very important thing to do. In addition to that, we also we have two different kinds of clinical supervision. We have an internal supervisor and an external supervisor as well. And whenever the financial status allows, we also take our team for a retreat. On other occasions, also we have a very big net of volunteers who wanted to support TRC. So those people, they either come over and do a kind of capacity building training in the broadest sense of the word, and if face to face is difficult because the situation is somehow dangerous around, and so many people, they can't come over. I mean, those from outside, they can't come over, but they do their work, through virtual means. And also another thing that I usually invite members of the board of directors also to accompany the team in the field, so they feel that they are not the ones who are doing the difficult work, but they are supported by the entire staff of the center, and also board members and council members. When they accompany them, they feel that they are really doing a very important work, and people share with them also the jeopardy that they might face. I think it's giving also a lot of support to the team. And at the same time, also, we give some whenever possible, because these days we have a huge demand for the services we provide. And at the same time, we can't always meet the demands, as the way it should be. Like, for example, so many people were released from Israeli detentions these days, and those people, they all speak about very difficult, methods of torture, psychological and physical, and they speak about new methods that we never heard about in the past few years. So we think that it's very important also to be very close to the team, so that they don't develop a kind of vicarious traumatization, which is highly likely in a situation like ours. So these methods, we find them helpful. And also a new technique that we adopted, that we ask some universities and, some prominent organizations and the platforms in Palestine to speak about their experience and to share their work. So these moral support is very important to the staff at the moment. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Khader, and especially it was interesting to hear how, where you were mentioning about sending other staff and board members to accompany the team in the field, so they feel supported and their work recognized. Yes, thank you so much. I'm gonna move now to Dr. Kamal. I have two questions, but I will start with the, just so we follow the same rationale. As executive director of TPO Nepal, how do you do this in your center? How do you ensure staff well-being in your center?
Yeah. So thank you, Bertha. Building upon the discussions from our panel colleagues. So at TPO Nepal, how we do the care for caregiver is by building it into our programs. So most of the time, TPO Nepal has already started building up into the proposal and also into the budget on how the care for caregiver workshops can be conducted. And based on these, so we have already come up with a 3-day care for caregiver workshop activity. So it is more focused to the clinical service providers, especially the clinical categories like the psychosocial counselors who work in the communities, the clinical supervisor and the clinical psychologist and the psychiatrist who provide the mental health and psychosocial support services to the victims of torture, including those survivors of sexual and gender-based violence in the communities. And this workshop is especially focused on a 3-day activity, and it's more sort of experiential learning. So people from within these communities, they come together, and they share the experiential learning in a very confidential manner. And we also follow on the self awareness methodologies, especially using the narrative approach, the art-based approaches. And building upon these, our counselors and the clinical supervisors, they come together, and sometimes we also invite the experts from external agencies who have those expertise to conduct these care for caregiver workshop sessions. And we also conduct regular clinical supervision sessions, so that's almost like bi-weekly. So every fortnightly, we conduct clinical supervision of those staff who work in the communities and provide the mental health and psychosocial support services to the survivors of torture in the communities. And during the supervision sessions, we focus on the problems and challenges they have come across, the difficulty with the case management, and also the different sorts of trauma they come across. And we discuss about the fatigue. We also discuss about the compassion fatigue, stress, the burnout, and also the vicarious trauma that they have been going through. So during, especially on the individual supervision sessions, so during the group supervision sessions, we make them aware about how these would manifest, and how they should identify the signs and symptoms of the stress, the burnout, and also the vicarious trauma, so that they can start realizing this, and also they can start sharing it to the supervisor, and then seek help on time. So at TPA Nepal, we have tried to build it into the program during the proposal conceptualization and development, and at the same time we implement these and then bring the teams together into the workshop, in a close residential workshop. And we also try to engage people for starting from the registration, or the receptionist, to the support staff, and also the administrative and finance staff, and also some of the project coordinators, so that they can also know how important it is to conduct the care for caregiver workshop, and how this program is being conducted, and how this is being reflected into the budget, and even how the staff who sit at the reception or the outpatient department should behave and know about the signs and symptoms that the torture survivors would come across, and how they should behave in a friendly manner or trauma-informed approach. So that's how we have tried to do. And we have also been trying to build it into the policies. So while working in humanitarian conditions, and while also providing support to people especially affected by torture, how important it is to conduct this care for caregiver workshop. So I think this brings all the staff together in the same page on how they understand and realize the care for caregiver workshop. And we also try to mix staff from different projects. So it's not only a single project based CFC. We have tried to accumulate and combine CFCs for different projects. So for example, from IRCT, from UNHCR, or from UNICEF, we try to bring those groups together, and then mingle them together, and also create a small group within the larger group, so that there is a particular staff who conduct and facilitates the CFC, and then the group comes together, and then they learn from each other. So this is how we have created a sort of organizational culture in how people start realizing the importance of care for caregiver workshop. And then they have understood it, and they have also been quite successful in making the donors quite understandable on how this is reflected into the quality of service that's being delivered by our clinical staff. So this is what we have been doing.
Thank you, Dr. Kamal. And actually, you already addressed the second question on how can centers include this type of interventions in their proposals and budgets. Can you just tell us a bit about the experience of when you've been doing that? What was the reaction of donors? What is their response so far?
Yeah. Yeah, since like a care for caregiver workshop has become a part of culture for the caregivers at TPA Nepal, so what we do is during the process of proposal writing, we keep it as an activity under the organizational development, like ensuring the quality of MHPSS services being delivered. Sometimes we keep it under the chunk of MHPSS activities. And we write a brief paragraph stating what care for caregiver is, why this is important, the justification, and how important it is to ensure the quality of service. So this is being reflected in the budget as well. But many times they do have a reservation on why this is important, because this is not a sort of service, but this is a sort of something that's only for staff. We then try to get back to them with the rationale and justification, and also the experience from the past care for caregiver workshop. We also document these workshops, and we have also been maintaining the report from different care for caregiver workshops that we have been running over years. And with this, we have been able to convince them. And sometimes how we try to do is we also invite the members from our executive board to come and get involved in the workshop. And sometimes we also invite the donors. So for example, if UNHCR and LWF are funding, or WHO is funding, then we invite them also to participate in the workshop. They come there, they learn about the cases, what sort of trauma have they gone through, the compassion fatigue, and in what sort of circumstances they have been working with the survivors in the communities, and that really takes a stake. And that's how the care for caregiver workshop is important. And I think engaging especially those donor and funding agencies, and then reflecting them about the importance of this has been quite fruitful. That's one thing. The second thing is also about the proper documentation on how CFC is done, and also documenting the quotations, the quotes from different MHPSS staff who attended the CFC. That's important. And the third thing is about the policies, whether your institutional policy is in place. So for example, TPO Nepal has now started building it into the personal policy, that whenever a staff who provides services to the people affected by humanitarian emergencies, and in that instance, whenever he or she goes to that setting to work in that conflict affected area or humanitarian setting, and then he or she can take a leave, 1 day leave, after he or she comes back from the field. So that sort of culture has also been reflected into the policies. So based on these institutional policies, based on the engagement with the donors, and also the proper documentation, I think it has been quite fruitful in convincing the donors on how the CFC is being reflected into the proposal and the budget. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Dr. Kamal. So this is important, or interesting, at least for others here in the call to hear. Okay, I'm gonna move now to the last question of today, and then we're gonna open the floor to the audience. And Michael Brune, I will go now to you. You provide care for caregivers. Can you walk us through how you do this, or give us some examples?
Yes, hi to everybody. I don't see all of you on the screen, but it's nice to be here. Well, I'm Dr. Michael Brune. I'm a psychiatrist and a psychotherapist. I work in Hamburg. I've been working many years with the IRCT, and also I worked in rehabilitation centers for torture victims. But now I work with traumatized refugees in the individual form, in an independent practice, and many of my patients are also torture victims. We heard a lot about the importance of care for caregiving and also of supervision. And what I have done in the last years is external supervision to some of the members or persons involved with the work of the IRCT. The supervisions I have given have been external, of course, and been with different places all over the world. And it was in situations where for one or another reason, it was necessary with an external supervision from someone completely external to the context the work of the person or the group. Or the places where people were working. I received the request for supervision through the secretariat and IRCT secretariat in Copenhagen, through Lisa Henry, and the supervisions I have given have been individual, and then the individual have been to between 1 and 3 sessions of 1 hour each. The group sessions have been for 2 hours or more. These supervisions have sometimes been more like an exchange of ideas and between 2 colleagues, and sometimes have been more counseling, and sometimes also being very, very clear recommendations what to do about the difficult situation the person found himself or the person found himself in. The problems have to do with clinical work, to do with institutional dynamic problems, and also one case where it was a more personal problem. One very important aspect of supervision is that it's absolutely confidential from my part. Lisa knows whom I've talked to whom I'm giving supervision, but she has, of course, not no information about what we have been talking about. You can, yeah, okay. My screen changed, so I was a bit confused here. I give, a recommendation I give, if you seek supervision, as you will find the supervisors being clinicians or psychotherapists experienced, and psychotherapists have a different approach to psychotherapy, and that affects also the kind of psychotherapy you will get. So it could be psychodynamic, psychoanalytical, behavioral, systemic, or some other approach. So you should be aware of that and maybe ask the supervisor what kind of approach he or she has, and think about if you need better skills to handle the problem you have, or you need more understanding of the problem, the conflict you're in, and to find your own way of solving the problem. But I think most supervisors, even though they're very different in their approach to psychotherapy, they're not very dogmatic, and open to listen to or give you recommendations from other psychodynamic psychological approaches, and also give a good supervision. Okay, that's what I want to say, and I think we've been talking very long here because now it's open for questions.
It's okay. Magically, we're still within time, so that's good.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much, Michael, and Dr. Kamal, Dr. Khader, Clarisa, Danielle, Jose Luis, and Lindy Wee. So now we will go back to the audience and open the floor for discussion. And we would like to ask you, what do you think? In what ways can organizations begin to implement Care4Cargivers? Also, if you want to share what types of mechanisms you're using currently in your centers. Is it peer support? Is it staff training? Is it supervision? So the floor is open. I'm going to put here gallery view. We also have some comments in the chat, but preferably if you can go on mic so we can see your face and it turns into a conversation.
Angela, question.
Angela, yes, sorry, no te vi.
Gracias. Es complementar un poco frente al autocuidado o el cuidado de los equipos de trabajo profesionales del área de la salud, pero también de las ciencias sociales. Y en países como los de América Latina, en Colombia en particular, algo muy importante es la contextualización de la realidad que vivimos en nuestros países a nivel de la violación de los derechos humanos. Si estamos los profesionales del área de la salud y las ciencias sociales contextualizados de por qué se dan las situaciones, por qué se presenta la violación de derechos humanos, por qué se presenta la tortura, abordar los casos nos da mayores capacidades profesionales, psíquicas, emocionales, energéticas para abordar el trabajo. Y esto genera una mayor fortaleza en la gente para asumir el trabajo. En estos países, y hablo de América Latina, nuestros centros, los profesionales de la salud y las ciencias sociales que abordamos la atención, las terapias, el cuidado de las víctimas, somos unos defensores de derechos humanos y como tal nos catalogamos en nuestros países. Además de ser profesionales de la salud, médicos, psicólogos, sociólogos, trabajadores sociales que atendemos, que abordamos la atención, somos defensores de derechos humanos y eso nos da también un carácter, una calidad muy fuerte para nuestro trabajo. No es igual cualquier psicólogo, cualquier sociólogo, en cualquier parte, en cualquier clínica normal del sistema de salud, abordar este trabajo en la atención de las víctimas del conflicto sociopolítico en cada uno de nuestros países. Entonces, el estar contextualizados permanentemente de la situación sociopolítica de nuestros países es parte del cuidado que tenemos los equipos de trabajo.
Ay, perdón. Sí, muchas gracias, Ángela. La importancia del contexto sociopolítico y el rol como defensores de derechos humanos. Thank you so much. I can see hands being raised. That's a very good sign. Please, the others who want to also comment something, put up, raise your hand, your virtual hand, so I can add you in the list. So I have Grace and Metzhild. So Grace, if you want to go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Just a quick one. I wanted to add that I'm Wangeshi from IMLU in Kenya, the Independent Medical Legal Unit. I just wanted to add that the idea of budgeting for Care4Cargivers is very important, but it really needs to stem out from our strategic plans. We have to realize that part of what we do includes taking care of the people that are taking care of survivors and victims' families and all that. And therefore, it has to start from the strategic plans and be built into our policies. We have actually noticed that when you go to your donors and development partners with Care4Cargivers as part of your programming interventions, they're very open to it and we're able to discuss and negotiate on that. The second point I wanted to add is an experience that we have. We have come up as IMLU. We now have a mental wellness day where we literally close the office the same day for everyone. Nobody works, nobody receives emails, nobody sends emails, nobody calls the other. We just want staff to have a me time where they can really reflect and use the time to care for themselves through different means, which we have encouraged. And we're able to even give them skills if they're interested. There are some things we support to get them to that level. So it's important to be intentional about Care4Cargivers. I think that's a point I want to make for today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and Wangechi. Sorry, I said Grace, but it's Wangechi. Yes. Metzhild, if you want to go ahead. I'm having difficulties with names.
Thank you. Yes, I'm so just overwhelmed because I'm seeing so many people from the centers, which I have known in past years, and this makes such a warm feeling. Anyway, I just wanted to mention that supervision and like peer support procedures is just a part of this whole thing of care for caregivers. And I think it's so important to have this comprehensive policies in the centers. Now we have been doing some trainings in a special methodology, which we have learned from our former supervisors in the center in Berlin, in the Center for Treatment of Torture Victims, from Johan Lansen and Ton Hans. And it's something special because it's very structured, and you see that working with victims of torture and with these human rights violations makes a lot to us, not only a burden, but also can cause conflicts in the team, identifications with different parts of the cases and families and so on. So we have taken this methodology and trained it in the MENA region, and we have now 38 Syrian supervisors doing it directly for their colleagues. So I just want to say that we wanted to do a training also with IRCT. This didn't happen because of I don't know, some difficulties with financing and follow up. But I would really always think having external supervision, if possible, is a very good thing, because you are seeing from outside perspective and you're not enmeshed in the same organization. Now you are more independent. And then adding this to other formats in your staff policies. That's it.
Thank you, Mathilde. It's good to hear 38 colleagues from Syria already providing supervision. Good. Are there, I don't see any other hands as of now. Well, Lisa, go ahead.
Yeah, I can't resist, because I really appreciate, Angela, this perspective that you brought into play here about being also proud. And it's a very unique space we're in, right? That we have this opportunity to work as human rights defenders and to join in this particular space. So this makes us unique. I'm not myself a mental health expert, but I'm supporting as many as I can. But I think that's a really interesting and very powerful way to look at this. You are a part of something very special. You are part of the frontline defenders of human rights in supporting torture survivors. And this gives you a new knowledge that's going to, increasingly enhance our ability as mental health professionals in this particular space to do better work in future. Of course, all the more reason to use all the techniques possible, given resource constraints. But I'm just really happy, Angela, to have that articulated in the way you've done that. And also just to all of you to say, it's a really nice long list of ideas of really good techniques, some of which don't cost, a kroner in Denmark, the Danish currency. Inviting your board members to be involved, inviting external stakeholders to come and talk to your staff, interaction from academics. These are some, and I think, Clarisa, you gave some awesome ideas also of the physical ideas. So there's just a long list now of ideas if we as managers take it seriously and begin to implement some of these. I see the word consistent a lot. I see the word systematic. I see the idea of having a policy, incorporating it into your draft concept notes but there's an awful lot you can harvest here if you want to. At the same time, you can be proud, as Angela described. So really, thanks, Angela, for that perspective.
Thank you, Liz and Angela. Next, I have Veronica from Düsseldorf.
Yeah, thank you very much for the meeting and the sharing of your experiences. And what I wanted to ask is if we can go on with this sharing of experiences, maybe in Fabo, any virtual space, sharing of your well-being policies or of any documents, like lists of activities or anything like that, because what I realize over the years I've been working in the field is that there are a lot of ideas and a lot of things we try, and then in the practice, this doesn't work out and nobody's participating in that activity. And it's really very hard to keep focus on this Care4Cargivers in this, with all the pressure which is in the field. And we'll in our team we want to focus this for this year, so we'll try to evaluate what's working and what's not working and what we can maybe change. But for me, it would be helpful to have maybe some of your well-being policies as well, to have an idea how that can look like. And I think this idea of putting it in the budget and maybe writing a project to focus that would be helpful. But yeah, I think we can share our experiences on that in a very concrete way. That would be helpful for us. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure, Veronica. Actually, this is I mean, I hear two types of sharing needs. I hear from documents and policies to more like hands-on practices and activities that that colleagues are implementing in their center. So, but yeah, we'll make sure that we allow for spaces where we can share these experiences. This is only the first one of many that I hope we will continue having and going much more in depth into this topic. But also we can, as you were saying, Veronica, we can provide a space in the Fabo platform where we can store further materials and documents that I think Lindy has also been sharing in the chat. And Lindy, you have the hand up. Please go ahead.
Just to reiterate what I've been saying in the chat is that IRCT and its Health Advisory Board, we're doing two things. We're linking centers in crisis with external supervisors or professionals that can assist the staff in member centers in crisis. So if your center is one of these that I've just described, please feel free to reach out to the IRCT via my email that I've put in the chat, and we will do our best to link you. Not only if you're in crisis, but if you feel like you may need some training or to talk to someone with more experience, like some of what Veronica has just said, we are happy to link you with either centers or experts who can meet with you to give you the training or advice that you need. On the other hand, we would also like to ask that if you feel like you do have the expertise, if you are one of these professionals who has some time to contribute towards IRCT's member centers, whether you come from a member center yourself or if you're independent, please also email me so I can put you in a database. We're building a sort of a database of people or experts that we can have on speed dial to help our member centers in need. Thank you. My email address is ldh@irct.org.
Perfect, Lindy. When I will actually copy paste again the message you send in the chat, so it shows here at the end.
And then also, if you're interested to learn more or hear more of from one of the panelists that's spoken that presented, they're happy to connect with you. So just let us know as well.
Perfect. And I'm not sure, are there any other comments or reactions, observations questions? Lisa, go ahead.
Yeah, maybe just in closing, I mean, if this topic, and now we've had almost 100 people here for an hour and a half, right? And there's been I think, quite lively exchange. Obviously, there's a thirst for more knowledge. It seems like this is a need, right? If you feel that this is something very important for yourself as a member of IRCT, as we develop our new strategy, which will be happening in the course of this year, we'll define a new strategy from the year 2026 to 2030. If you feel this theme should play a role in our strategy, we would like to hear you speaking up to this. You'll be invited to participate in regional meetings and questionnaires, what have you. But you can make your opinion known by communicating that to us. Of course, it's always a matter of prioritization, but if you feel this should, come up on the list of priorities of things we could be helping to do or be, convincing donors, this is where you have to put some funding, people. Please tell us. That's the way we respond. We're, demand driven, so to speak. We do what we hear a majority of you telling us is important to you. So those are just thanks.
Perfect, Lisa. Good reminder. So yeah, feel free to reach out. And especially Lindy again, she's the project associate of this project at the IRCT. So, and I think magically we made it on time this time. It's the first webinar that we can close on time. So I think yes, you have the poll on your screen. It's only 3 short questions that we ask you to kindly answer, so we continue to get qualitative feedback on these spaces. And we have still 5 minutes to closure. So while you respond to the poll, if there's anyone who wants to say something,
you should give us a little dance move or something so that we can leave this session being a little bit staff welfare.
Yeah, who wants to sing? Jose Luis, can you sing?
Jose Luis, can you sing? Come.
Is it too early in the morning?
Yes.
I actually have a question, though. Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, better.
Go ahead, Wengechi.
I've lost my video. Okay, I was just wondering, would you consider having a kind of either quarterly virtual session where we can turn it into a training, maybe for half an hour, and do an hour debriefing, whatever it is, as in this platform, because that's really important. We'll get different skills coming in, and it could be a way to just get all of us together as a team. I don't know.
Again, Wengechi, were you proposing this on a quarterly basis or
yes,
a training, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but make it half a training, half a Care4Cargivers, because we can pick out certain skills. Like you can even bring an expert to debrief us here, or utilize some of the skills we've heard about today.
Perfect. That's a very good idea. And I can see Lindy taking notes on her notebook.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Good. Okay, so if you don't want any karaoke session with Jose Luis,
run away.
Exactly. Then I think we'll close it here. And thank you, as always, for prioritizing this space today.
Oh, hello.
Oh, William. Yes, Imlu Kenny is
how are
very
you?
active. I love it.
Yeah, actually, I'm on transit, but then I would like to support what Wangechi has just said regarding the training, and probably we could engage CVT because they have very good materials, particularly on vicarious trauma that they trained our network of counselors on. And these are materials that I find very useful because they are specifically meant to provide care for the caregivers. So I think that is an institution that we will engage, given that they have a long-standing experience on the issue.
You're
Thank
totally
you.
right, William. And actually, I think Alice is here in the call with us from CBT, but I will also share, let me see if I can find it fast, the link to their website where they have like a self-care and well-being publication. Just quickly find it. I don't know, Alice, if you want to say
Thank
some.
you. One set of tools I'm thinking of are, I'll send the link here, related to the professional quality of life scale, which is an assessment that people or groups of people can take to think about their well-being at work. And so, yes, there's some tools on there, and we can definitely look into further sharing and discussion of those.
Perfect.
Excellent.
Yeah. And we'll be happy to have Liam again. I think she's one of the main one leading this topic, right? CBT.
Yes, she's been very involved. So
Nice. Good.
Thanks, everyone. Give yourself
Thank
a
you
round
so
of
much.
applause. Do, 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 do.
Yes. Next time we'll save some space for dancing. Live
Actually,
karaoke.
move your shoulders. Turn off your
Exactly.
phones.
Yes. Thank you all.
Thanks for
See
being
you
in this
at-
space with us. This solidarity is amazing.
Yes. See you
Human
at the
rights
next session
defenders.
on the 26th of March. And we're going to be discussing survivor engagement with Carmen Araujo. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.